Lyrica woke up refreshed and found Shiro already awake and decoding language. Surprised by Shiro's progress, Lyrica learned about their world's capabilities. They decided to attend lessons together, and Shiro insisted on treating Lyrica to a meal. During their conversation, Shiro comforted Lyrica about her level and age. Back home, Shiro received her school uniform, and they prepared for lessons. In swordsmanship class, Shiro sparred with Lyrica, discovering her hidden proficiency with a dual-ended blade. Through their interactions, Lyrica gained confidence and found a supportive friend in Shiro. Lyrica slowly opened her eyes as she felt refreshed after sleeping. Oh right, Shiro, she thought as she instantly sat up. She looked around and was surprised seeing Shiro at the desk with lots of paper around her. Currently, Shiro had tilted her head back as it seemed like she was fatigued. Noticing that Lyrica had woken up, Shiro grabbed a notepad and quickly wrote something down. "You're awake," she looked over with a smile. Lyrica was both shocked and surprised. "You learned reading and writing in the time I was asleep." "How?" Lyrica asked. "Decoding. I matched my audio cues saying the words with the alphabet. I slowly decoded what each letter sounded like and memorized it." Shiro wrote down as Lyrica couldn't believe someone could learn a whole language in the time she was asleep. "Unbelievable," Lyrica muttered. "Is it really? We live in a world with dungeons and monsters. I think learning language in a day isn't that shocking." Shiro wrote down with a grin. "I suppose so," Lyrica said as it made sense. "So what lessons do you have?" "Lessons? I take swordsmanship, close quarter combat, and dungeon exploration," Lyrica replied as Shiro nodded. "Then I'll take those lessons with you." She smiled. "Ah, what about yours? Aren't you an ice mage?" Lyrica asked slightly. FL.U.S.T.E.R.E.D. Shiro smiled as she flicked her fingers, and a sword made from ice appeared. "Close quarters combat is important for a mage as well." Shiro wrote down. "That, and also you've helped me greatly." "No, it's mostly because of your efforts. I didn't do anything." Lyrica shook her head as she didn't believe in her own contribution. "Without your help, this would have taken much longer. Being able to recognize the language today will help me greatly." Shiro wrote down as Lyrica became embarrassed. "Since you've slept for the entire day, you want to go eat." It's 8 p.m., Lyrica said, shocked as she held the clock. "It'll be my treat." Shiro wrote down. "You really don't have to. I can afford it," Lyrica said, looking at Shiro. "If you don't let me do this, I will be angry." Shiro frowned slightly. "Fine," Lyrica said as she quickly dressed up. They walked towards the food court as Lyrica couldn't help but ask a few questions. "Shiro, how come you don't have shoes or socks?" she asked. "I woke up this way. It doesn't matter though since it doesn't hurt," Shiro replied. "How did you manage to get to level 21, even though you're 13? "I kill monsters and level up obviously. That being said, how old are you?" "Me, I'm 15 and only a level 10, Lyrica said, slightly depressed. "No worries. Since we can explore dungeons, I can help you level up quickly." "Why are you so nice?" Lyrica asked. "You showed me kindness, so I'll naturally reply with kindness." Shiro smiled as they arrived. They ordered some food and started to eat away. Shiro only ordered a sandwich as she hid a few mana stones inside, or else the sandwich would taste just like water. It doesn't fill her up either, only mana stone does. Lyrica seemed nervous as she kept fidgeting whilst they ate. "What's wrong?" "Oh, it's just that this makes us seem like friends. Are we not though?" I guess, but you don't want to hang out with me." "How come?" "Well, you might get looked down upon because you're hanging out with me. Everyone is at least level 13, plus when they reach the age of 15. Yet I'm still at level 10, Lyrica said. "A genius like you who's reached level 21 at the age of 13 shouldn't be hanging out with trash like me." Lyrica sighed. "Then what do you think about those people at a higher level? Some have a difference of 50 levels, yet they're at the same age. Are they still trash?" Shiro wrote down. "Of course not. They had the talent to reach such a high level after all," Lyrica replied. "Then have you heard of those people who jump levels to challenge their superiors. Lyrica nodded as she proceeded to say, experience can make up for the lack in stats. Then we just need to give you more experience. Not to mention, your class seems to be different from the normal starting class. Maybe it's because of your elven heritage, but it may need more EXP for you to level up once. Shiro wrote down. It can't be, Lyrica denied. The class Elven Swordswoman is the basic class of every elf who chooses to use the sword, Lyrica said as Shiro felt her smile twitch. This girl, Shiro thought as she was denying herself a little too hard. She remembers the Elven classes. At the start, they were basic classes, but later on, they become harder to class up compared to normal classes. This is because everyone had a chance at obtaining the special class, Elven Sword Saintess. Each type of weapon had its own Saint class, examples being Elven Archer Saint, Elven Axe Saint, and Elven Dagger Saint. However, there was only one shot at this class up, and if they failed, they had to go with Elven Grand Swordswoman, Elven Grand Archer, etc. The only reason Shiro knew about this class was due to the elf in the Lightbearer Hero's party. She had the class and exhibited superior battle prowess than even the hero at certain moments in her life. Shame she died during a large battle that raged on for 5 days and 5 nights. Then why don't we work together? You can help me while I help you in the dungeon. Shiro smiled. How would I help you? I can't speak, so there are some limitations in my life. Not only that, I don't know anything about myself, so having a friend stay with me helps a lot. Shiro wrote down, making up a reason. Lyrica's eyes brightened up as she grabbed Shiro's hand whilst ignoring the cold. Shiro was shocked seeing her suddenly grabbing her hand. You can count on me, Lyrica said as Shiro could only chuckle slightly. After they finished their meal, they walked home with Lyrica feeling happier than ever. Shiro shook her head with a smile, but it was during this that an idea suddenly popped into her mind, and a grin formed on her face. Tapping Lyrica's shoulders, Shiro showed Lyrica her notepad. So you know how elves have longer life expectancy than humans. Wouldn't that mean you're currently a lot younger in human years? So you aren't under level, but rather you're looking at this using the wrong age system. Shiro wrote down as Lyrica paused. That does seem to be the case, she replied, feeling embarrassed. However, age doesn't really matter. The higher level you are, the more mana you have stored inside you. The more mana you have, the more it vitalizes your body. This made it so that you're able to live for much longer than normal. But Shiro won't tell Lyrica that since she had just managed to give her some hope. Therefore, you have no reason to feel down, Shiro wrote as Lyrica nodded. You're right, Lyrica smiled. Returning back to their rooms, Shiro found a package next to her door. It's probably the uniform, she thought as she took the package inside with her. Inside the package was an assortment of clothes, a set for winter and a set for summer. The summer uniform was a short-sleeved gray dress with a red bow tie. The skirt stopped around her knees, as the uniform also came with black knee socks and shoes. The winter uniform, on the other hand, was earmuffs, scarf, and a long-sleeved white shirt with a black vest. It included a uniform jacket, as it was also gray in color, a separate skirt that reached her knees, and black tights. Folding up the winter uniform, Shiro placed the summer uniform ready for tomorrow. Before sleeping, she checked her timetable for the lessons she's applied for. Lessons: swordsmanship, magic, close quarters combat, dungeon exploration. She chose to apply for magic as there may be some interesting concepts in this new world. The first lesson tomorrow is swordsmanship. I have decent swordsmanship, but it can definitely improve, Shiro thought before falling asleep. Pound, pound, pound. So Shiro here will be studying with everyone. She's 13, so be patient with her. Oh, also she's mute, so she'll be carrying her notepad around with her. The teacher called out in the swordsmanship class. A girl raised her hands as the teacher gestured for her to speak. Why is she in the swordsmanship class? Isn't she a level 21 ice mage? The girl asked. That's because learning some swordsmanship will be helpful for mages, as close quarters are our weak points, Shiro wrote down. As Shiro mentioned, this is beneficial to her. Many high-level mages know some form of close-quarter combat to keep themselves safe. The teacher nodded. Sit wherever you like, she said as Shiro nodded. Walking over to Lyrica, Shiro sat next to her as she could hear a few mutters around her. Hey, Shiro smiled as Lyrica nodded. Try not to talk to me too much. They'll look down on you, Lyrica whispered. I don't care, Shiro wrote as they focused on the class. The class itself was pretty simple for Shiro. It focused on the stances and which part of the body you need to focus on when using the sword. While Shiro found this pretty boring, she could see Lyrica writing down notes earnestly. The theory lesson was over soon, and it was time for demonstration. Everyone paired up as Shiro could see a bunch of people wanting to pair up with Lyrica. However, she rejected all of them. How come you don't want to go with them? Shiro asked. They just want to suppress me because I'm level 10. My stats are lower than theirs. I can't really gain any form of experience sparring against them, Lyrica replied with a sigh. Then I'll spar with you, Shiro smiled. Ah, but aren't your stats much bigger than mine? I won't attack actively. You try to break my guard, okay? Land a hit on me and you win, Shiro wrote down as she picked up a wooden longsword. Lyrica nodded as she too picked up a wooden longsword. Ready when you are, Shiro wrote down as she held the sword with one hand. Lyrica nodded as she ran towards Shiro with her sword. Shiro only smiled as she placed the flat side of the blade on her palm and parried Lyrica's sword. Shiro allowed her sword to slide down the blade as she was about to attack. Lyrica drew the blade upwards to try block, but Shiro landed a light attack on her shoulder. Her eyes narrowed as she had a suspicion about Lyrica's moves. Not giving up, Lyrica held the sword in a reverse grip as she clashed with Shiro once more. This time, at the very moment the swords clash, Lyrica let go of her sword as she held it in an upright position. She twisted the sword as it moved Shiro's sword downwards. Shiro smiled as she crouched down and tripped Lyrica up. Again, Lyrica said as she had a smile on her face. They continued for several bouts as Lyrica kept getting knocked down. To outsiders, she was taking a beating. To Shiro, Lyrica was improving quickly. This girl is smart. She quickly corrects herself when she finds out what went wrong. If it wasn't for the other students suppressing her with their attributes, Lyrica would most definitely not have this self-esteem issue, Shiro thought as she hopped back and slid on the ground slightly. However, her movements seem a little awkward at times. It's like she's trying to use a staff rather than sword. She raised her hand to get Lyrica to stop. Picking up the notepad, Shiro started to write something down. You've improved a lot, Lyrica. So smart, Shiro praised. It's just dumb luck, Lyrica said as Shiro shook her head. I have an idea. Do you want to give it a try? An idea? What idea? Shiro walked over to the teacher and got her attention. Do you have a handle without a wooden blade? She asked. A handle? Yeah, we do. What do you need it for? I think Lyrica's moves match a different weapon better. I want to see if I can use my eyes to find out the weapon. I see. Since you have an idea, give it a try. The teacher smiled as passed Shiro a wooden handle. Thank you, Shiro wrote down as she jogged back to Lyrica. The temperature around her dropped as ice started to coagulate on both ends of the handle. As the ice finished, Lyrica was surprised at what Shiro held in her hands. It was a dual-ended blade. On either side of the handle was a double-sided sword as Shiro lightly threw it over to Lyrica. Give it a try, Shiro wrote down as Lyrica nodded. Holding the weapon, Lyrica waved it around as she became more proficient. Wow, Shiro, this weapon is really easy to use, Lyrica said, surprised at how easy it was for her to use it. I knew it, Shiro thought with a smile. What Lyrica experienced was hidden proficiency. Hidden proficiency was a situation where the body would exhibit movement habits for a certain type of weapon. It wouldn't show up on the status board, so it was hard for people to know which weapon suited them. Most of the time, it was custom-made weapons. For those who did discover their hidden proficiency, their combat prowess soared as their body movements were designed to fit that weapon. While the dual-ended blade wasn't exactly Lyrica's hidden proficiency, Shiro already knew the weapon was something similar to the dual-ended blade. She noticed this during the fight as Lyrica would always fall back on using the bottom of her sword when she was forced into a tight situation. When used with a longsword, it is suicidal. When used with a dual-handed sword, it was effective. Try attacking me now, Shiro wrote down as Lyrica nodded. Twirling the blade, Lyrica charged towards Shiro, parrying the top-down slash. Shiro twisted her body as she dodged the other end of the blade. Lyrica didn't let her loose as the blade followed Shiro's movements like a ghost, parrying her attack several more times, with a few close calls. Shiro was surprised at how powerful Lyrica's hidden proficiency was. Even though she was suppressing herself until she was roughly level 10 in stats, it was still amazing for Lyrica to sneak in a few close calls. The spar finished as Lyrica panted heavily. Shiro, on the other hand, was fine as always. Congratulations, Lyrica. You've found the weapon you're really good at. Shiro smiled and showed her the writing. It's all thanks to you, Shiro, Lyrica replied, happily feeling her confidence rise. Shiro was an enigma for her. The moment she arrived, Lyrica felt her life change. Shiro gave her confidence and even a weapon she was strangely proficient in using. If Shiro never appeared, Lyrica doesn't know what kind of a state she would still be in.